had to have like reconstructive ACL surgery was the main thing that was damaged that needed repair.
What up, everyone? Shakiel Mahjouri here for CBS Sports, and you know who this is. He is the former WEC featherweight champion and Combat Press's four-time Coach of the Year. He'll be in the corner of Dustin Poirier at UFC 281 on Saturday, November 12th, when he faces Michael Chandler in New York City. American Top Team's own Coach Mike Brown. How's it going, my man?
Doing well, doing well.
Well, thanks so much for joining me. We got lunch. We got some water. Important to stay hydrated ahead of a very busy 281 fight week coming up. Speaking of food, I think this is actually a great segue. I saw in August that you linked up briefly with the Liver King himself. Have you gotten your fighters on that raw organ diet yet?
Nobody yet. I don't think anybody's followed that plan yet, but you never know. There's openings in the future. Maybe he's the next great sports nutritionist for MMA. I see him popping up at a lot of different shows.
I saw him, Paulo Costa, and Patricky Pitbull, I think, actually had a eating contest, and it was gnarly, and I have no interest in ever taking part in such an activity.
But he seems very interested in mixed martial arts. He's at a lot of shows now, so that's cool because he has a big following, and more viewers, the better.
I think so. I'm at 280, in fact, which we will get to at some point here. Let's talk a little bit, of course, about Dustin Poirier versus Michael Chandler. With the introduction of Islam Makhachev as your new lightweight champion, I think that opens up a lot of doors for guys who had, recently fought Charles Oliveira. As best as you understand it, what is at stake for the winner of Poirier versus Chandler?
Well, I mean, they're both top of the heap. They're up there in that upper echelon, top five type of guy, right? I think depending on the performance, I think either one of them could be one fight away from a title shot, depending on how things go. I mean, it's a lot of times it's about style points, how you do it, how you look, and how the landscape looks when your fight's over. So sometimes it's timing, but both of these guys are up there, and both of them are very close to number one spot.
You mentioned being one fight away, and obviously we don't ever mean to look past our opponent, but just sort of looking at the landscape of lightweight, who else is sort of in that spot where it's one fight away? I know for me, obviously, Beneil Dariush is kind of the main guy that comes to mind, Charles Oliveira, perhaps.
I'm thinking Dariush is probably the guy. I also think they're talking about Volkanovski being next, right? So there's a lot of different names being thrown around, and I would think it's going to be one of those guys, unless this performance is, blows your socks off, and that's what happens many times, right? If somebody has a beautiful performance and the timing is right, you never know who will slip in there.
When you sort of examine Michael Chandler, what do you think is the biggest challenge that he presents to Dustin in this fight?
I mean, he's an explosive, powerful athlete. He's very well rounded. He's good with distance. He's quick. He's powerful. He can wrestle. He's well rounded. I don't think it's one thing. I think it's a bunch of things that you got to worry about.
On the flip side, where do you think, obviously we don't want to give away the game plan too much, but where do you think Dustin Poirier is going to sort of give Chandler the most problems in this?
I don't want to tip my cards too much, but Dustin is prepared, anywhere the fight goes. He's a danger on the ground, feet, and he can go hard for 15 minutes. So I think Dustin can win this fight in any way, right? He could potentially get a KO. He can win by decision, and he has the ability to sub these guys. So it's harder to say how he'll get it done, but he has multiple ways to get the job done.
We're coming off for Poirier, the Oliveira fight. Coming out of that, what did you sort of examine as the one thing you wanted him to sharpen the most or improve on the most?
I think our get-ups, getting back to our feet, and choke defense. I think it was, lack of concentration or whatever it might be, but we got caught in a rear naked, something that we worked on quite a bit, and that's not like that doesn't happen in the gym. So he's very tight and he's really good in these positions, but it was kind of out of the ordinary. Just didn't get the job done that night, but he's much better in those positions.
Yes, well, nature of the beast, unfortunately, at times, and still very much one of the best in the planet right now. Let's talk a little bit about 280. Obviously, Islam Makhachev, your new UFC lightweight champion. I asked Coach Greg Jones about this recently. Obviously, he's been working with Chandler, and I kind of want to press it to you as well. Coming out of that fight, what is the lesson you think the rest of the lightweight division can take away when it comes to preparing to fight Charles Oliveira, based on the way Islam sort of employed his game?
I don't think this is anything new, really. I mean, I think we've seen this in the past. I think this is, he's very strong offensively, Oliveira, but he has some holes defensively. He's been hurt, he's been finished before in many different ways. He is very dangerous, and he has the ability to finish anybody. But on the flip side, he's going to be in the pocket. He's going to be there to be hit. He's coming hard, and he can also be the nail. He's been hurt in many fights. He's hurt in most fights he's in. He bounces back most often, but that's not always the case. And he showed, even though he's got the most subs in the history of the sport, he can also be submitted. But this is nothing new. This is nothing that we didn't know was possible.
We often talk about Makhachev as sort of the second coming of Khabib, and obviously they've trained together for a long time. Islam is under Khabib's tutelage. But in what ways do you think their games are the most different? Like, what are some of the things that Makhachev does really well that sort of are different than Khabib's approach?
I think, well, a big one is he's southpaw. I feel like he's a little more precise, a little less volume, but precise with his strikes. He keeps it simple, using the open stance weapons, a lot of basic stuff. Keeps it short, sweet, and simple. Straight left hand, right hook, and rear leg. But very efficient and effective.
I want to talk a little bit. Oh, yeah.
I think, I would say the biggest of it maybe is efficiency. Khabib would use a little more volume and use a lot of techniques, I think, to wear you out, distract you, or just, I guess, tire you out and then get you down.
And I want to turn the focus to you as a coach a little bit. Before I do, can we please talk about that beautiful dog on the portrait to your right? Who do we have there?
That's one of my old dogs, no longer with us. That's painting my good friend Brad Pickett.
Hey, Brad Pickett. Wait, Brad Pickett painted that?
No. He had got an artist to paint it. It was a photograph that turned into a painting.
I think it was actually Brad Pickett who originally gave you my phone number. And dang, why is this only coming up in my brain now? I sat down with him a couple years ago for another website to do a series where I just kind of asked fighters about like their craziest stories, and he specifically mentioned something involving you, Mike. So I'm gonna have to go dig up that video and be warned. I don't remember what it's about, but I will be presenting that to you next time we talk.
Well, we spent a lot of time together, so there's a lot of crazy stories.
Okay, well, I'll track that one down for next time. Hopefully we won't embarrass you or incriminate you too much on that one, Mike. Okay, when you were looking at, I put out a Q&A online. Shout out to the folks over at SureDog who always like to get involved. Either as a coach or as a training partner, what is a sign for you that someone has like outstanding potential? What is something about a fighter when you look at and something goes off in your head like, whoa, this person might be able to take this really, really far?
I would say focus and is gifted genetically with probably conditioning is the best, I think, natural gift that I see in guys. If they're born with that natural high level conditioning and good focus, they can go quite far.
Obviously we're coming off the Jake Paul Anderson Silva fight, and at this point, I think one of the things that people do grant Paul is he has some power. Obviously that comes from a base, good rotation, planting your feet, but there is a natural component to having knockout power. Do you have any idea like what goes into the genetics or the physical gifts of having really great knockout power? I don't.
No, I was literally having the same conversation today with Dustin, and because he's one of those guys with natural punching power, and it's weird natural kicking power too. Without trying, without loading up, for whatever reason, punches and kicks are extremely hard. Both hands, both feet, both legs, and I don't know what is actually. I don't know if it's like
bone density or something.
Bone density, or whether it's muscle attachment, ligament attachment, maybe
okay.
the way the levers are working. I have no idea. I'm not
That's some good theories.
PhD in physics, but who knows what it is? But they're definitely a giant genetic component to that.
Obviously, but before your days as a coach, you were a very successful fighter, former WEC featherweight champion, dethroned Uriah Faber, defended the title against him. What do you think for you has carried over the most from fighter to coach? On the flip side, what's something that maybe an attribute you had as a fighter that you just kind of had to completely throw away when you made the transition?
What did I have to throw away?
Or is there a component that you thought would be very valuable as a fighter to a coach that ended up really not playing a factor?
I mean, there are loads of techniques. The game is evolving really fast. Like my last fight was now almost 10 years ago, August 2013. We're 10 years. So the technique has evolved incredibly in the last 10 years, right? Like there's so much technique that is obsolete. And I think it's evolving faster than it ever did before. We're moving very quickly. There's many techniques that are gone and no longer work, and it's in with the new. There's better athletes, guys experimenting with different stuff all the time, and we're seeing dramatically different technique than we did 10 years ago.
And what part of what do you think sort of made for the best transition from fighter to coach? What do you think you bring as your background from a high level fighter that maybe not all coaches have?
I guess just the experience of the knowing all the feelings that go in with fighting, with what it feels like to win, lose, have a tough fight, have an easy fight, everything in between, and have an understanding of that, and when something doesn't work, why it might not work, and maybe more the mental side, I would say.
Another comment that someone put online, they just kind of want to get your thoughts on Jose Aldo. Obviously, he announced his retirement not too long ago. You guys shared the cage. What are your memories from that time, sort of preparing for and fighting Jose?
He's a monster, man. Incredible athlete. I think he's probably the best featherweight we've ever seen.
He's your number one?
Yeah, I would have him number one for sure. He had an amazing reign, very long reign. And the fights weren't close. They were always very decisive, very one-sided, very fast, very powerful, great hips. I mean, he was the full package. I don't know how long it was, but he went pretty close to 10 years without losing, I believe.
As I was sort of doing my research today, I kind of fell into watching some old highlight clips. And one thing that almost made me throw up my breakfast that I came across was you versus Mazakazu Imanari. Bad legs, bad knee bar, totally kind of twisted your leg sideways. Remarkably, what followed was the best run of your career, 10 straight wins, featherweight title. I was wondering if you could share with me, like, what was going on with you in between suffering that injury and the subsequent fight that sort of kicked off this winning streak?
Well, yeah, it was. This is leg locks weren't advanced like they are today. Back then, he was definitely ahead of his time, and he was doing stuff that people weren't doing before. With I mean, a lot of this stuff is named after him. The Imanari roll is what I literally got hit with. Real tricky stuff. He was in very deep. I was trying to pull my leg out, and it twisted pretty hard the wrong way, and I tore everything pretty much. But I had to have like reconstructive ACL surgery was the main thing that was damaged that needed repair. And that was, I don't, that's like an 8-month, 9-month recovery, whatever it is. ACL is pretty common injury, but it's a slow process. Ligament repair, it takes a while to heal. And yeah, I think my first one back was in the AFC. I was the AFC champion back in the day, Absolute Fighting Championship, a show down here in Florida. I think my first fight back was a last-minute replacement. I think I had a tougher fight scheduled. There was an injury, and I forget who my first one back was. It might have been Dustin Nice, but I think he was a replacement. But it was probably good that I was able to test the new knee out on somebody who wasn't, elite world-class guy, but a very tough, solid guy. And yeah, one led to another and another, one at a time.
Yeah, well, good things came of it. Before we wrap up on some lighthearted stuff, I'd just love to get a couple little quick updates, as much as you can, or even know to share. I know Gilbert Burns has challenged Jorge Masvidal to meet him at UFC 283. That's in Brazil, January 2023. From what I gather, it appears that Gilbert is expecting to be on that card. Do we have any idea of a timetable for Jorge?
I'm not certain. I know he wants to go sometime early next year. He's in the gym working hard, maybe harder than ever. He's putting in a lot of work into his wrestling. And this is a guy who can focus, more than anybody that I know. It was really into like honing in on techniques and improving technique. And I think that's his best asset. And that's what he's been doing. He's been sharpening his tools, improving and adding a lot more depth to his wrestling. And I'm not sure exactly who or when. I'm not his manager, but it's going to be early next year, and I think we're going to see a sharper and better than ever
Suplex machine, Jorge Masvidal is what I'm
That's
saying.
Yeah. That's the guy.
And another guy, honestly, a fan favorite of mine, both as a competitor and just as a person, is Santiago Ponzinibbio. He was just rocketing up the division and knocking out Neil Magny in Buenos Aires. And then obviously he had a really, really bad health scare that kept him out of competition for over 2 years. Comes back, loses to Li Jingliang, and unfortunately there's been some inconsistencies. I imagine after a health scare like that, it's going to take time to sort of recalibrate and get comfortable. How are we feeling about Santiago's progress now that he's healthy?
Santiago's great, man. I think he's another guy who was ahead of his time. Great movement, great footwork, and that was before most of the sport was using footwork like he is. I think everybody's kind of caught on and realized, hey, you got to move your feet out there. This isn't boxing. You don't want to be flat-footed. You want to move those feet. You want to get in and out. Best defense in the world is don't be there, and that's what he does very well. Hits very hard, beautiful long straight punches, great calf kick. He had a very bad staph infection that kind of knocked him off track a little bit, but he's back, I think, on point, on form, and ready to shine. He's got a great fight ahead of him with Robbie Lawler, a legend. I think this is a exciting fight. I think one that people get pretty pumped up about, and I think one that he can look very well in.
Last thing before I let you go, Mike, you've been so gracious with your time. I just want to run you through a little bit of rapid fire. These can be one-word answers unless you feel inclined to share more. Nothing too crazy. All right, it's all going to be American Top Team themed, and we're going to out some of the fighters there, okay?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. Who is the most easily distracted at the gym?
Easily distracted? Sid Outlaw.
Well, that would have been me too if I had what it took to hang in there with you.
Or me. It could be me, but
okay, you're no one's gonna get mad at you, so that's okay. Who spars the hardest?
Who spars the hardest? Dustin Poirier.
Well, he might want to, considering
He's
who
gotten
gonna get
much
in there with.
nicer as he's gotten older with maturity, but Dustin likes to go hard.
Well, he'll have a willing dance partner, certainly, in UFC 281. Who is the most fun at the team parties when you guys gather to, maybe have a few drinks, just kind of hang out, blow off some steam? Who's the most fun there?
Sabah Hamasu.
Okay. Oh, interesting. I didn't expect that one.
It may be the most trouble also, but
Unfortunately, they go hand in hand sometimes, right? Who leaves the group dinners with the largest bill?
well, probably Dan Lambert.
Well, sorry, who is the biggest contributor to the bill?
Well, I'm gonna say Steve Mako because he can eat.
Big Bear. Yeah, big
Bear.
All right, and the last one. I mean, maybe you just gave the answer. Who gets on Dan Lambert's nerves the most?
I would say I don't know. I'm gonna go with Richie, our GM, just because he tries to. He's the only one that dares to try and get on his nerves.
Well,
And
I mean,
Masvidal as well. Masvidal is not afraid to get on.
I like that. Well, big personality. Careful, Dan might just cut a promo on them. Mike, I want to thank you so much for your time today. I want to leave you with the last word, so I'll do my part very, very quickly. Guys, thanks so much for checking out the video. If you're here, you know what you got to do. Subscribe, tap notification bell, thumbs up. Let us know in the comments section. Give us your official prediction for Dustin Poirier versus Michael Chandler at UFC 281 on Saturday, November 12th in New York City. Full feature with Mike Brown at cbssports.com in the description of this video. Mike, if there's anything you want to let the people know, the floor is yours.
No, right on. Keep following us. Keep following the team, American Top Team. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.